Okay, let's unpack this. You know that specific kind of frustration when you order a pizza and the app says arriving in 5 minutes and you've got the table set, you're starving, and then like 20 minutes later, you're still just staring at an empty driveway.
Oh, I know the feeling all too well. It's that gap between expectation and reality where hunger makes every minute feel like an hour.
Exactly. And that is exactly the vibe we got with the latest release on Geo Hotstar. We are talking, of course, about the newest entry into the Game of Thrones universe, A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Ah, yes. The return to Westeros, or should I say, the delayed return.
The anticipation was so high, this thing was scheduled to drop at 7:30 p.m. I'm there, popcorn ready, remote in hand, fully prepared, and 7:30 comes and goes. 7.45, nothing. It wasn't until after 8:40 p.m. that it finally showed up. I mean, come on. In the streaming era, that is an eternity.
You know, it's interesting you mentioned that because this isn't exactly an isolated incident for the platform. If you look at the patterns, they have a bit of a history with this.
Oh, really? So it's not just my bad luck.
No, not at all. Think back to the release of, say, Varanasi. Same platform. It was scheduled for something like 6:30, and then, poof, a solid hour delay. Seems like delaying content is becoming their, I don't know, weird signature move.
Right. Usually you expect what we call a shagun delay, 1 or 2 minutes just for good luck or whatever. But a 30-minute lag, that's significant.
It creates a very specific user experience, you know? You go from excitement to annoyance before the first frame even loads. But, okay, despite the logistical hiccups, the show is here. And that brings us to our mission for today's deep dive.
Which is it worth the wait?
Precisely. We need to figure out if this show actually lives up to that massive, towering legacy of Game of Thrones. Because, let's be honest, the vibe here is drastically different.
We're talking about a grounded tone, some questionable comedy, and, here's the kicker, a distinct lack of fire-breathing lizards. So the question on the table is, can a Westeros show actually survive without dragons?
That is the million-dollar question, or perhaps the million-gold dragon question.
Nice one. Okay, so let's jump into the timeline first. Help us get our bearings here. We aren't dealing with Jon Snow or Daenerys, but we're not in the House of the Dragon era either. Where are we?
We are dialing the clock back, but we're hitting a very specific sweet spot. This series takes place roughly 100 years before the events of Game of Thrones.
So pretty far back then.
Yes, but crucially, it's after the Dance of the Dragons, the war, and the other prequel. And this placement on the timeline, it dictates everything about the atmosphere of the show. You mentioned the lack of dragons earlier.
Yeah, where are they? I thought the Targaryens were all about fire and blood. If they're on the throne, shouldn't the sky be full of them?
Well, in this specific era, dragons have largely faded into memory. They exist in stories, in songs, in history books, but the average person, they don't really believe they exist anymore. They're like dinosaurs to us.
So if I saw a dragon flying over King's Landing in this show, I'd be just as shocked as the characters.
Exactly, and that absence changes the stakes completely. In House of the Dragon, the threat is nuclear, right? It's massive beasts burning cities. Here, the threat is forgetting your sword. The Targaryens have to rule through politics and laws, not just by threatening to melt everyone.
That makes the world feel smaller, in a way. Less apocalyptic.
Smaller is the right word, but I'd also say more intimate. And this brings us to our hero. And I use air quotes there because, well, let's talk about the premise of this first episode. We aren't following a king or a prince.
No. We were following a guy who just wants a job.
We're following a character named Dunk. He wants to be a warrior. He desperately wants to be a knight. But the reality is he was just a squire, an assistant to a hedge knight.
Hold on. Let's clarify hedge knight. For anyone who might think that sounds fancy, it's not. Right.
Far from it. A hedge knight is basically a homeless freelancer. They sleep under hedges. That's where the name comes from. They travel from town to town, entering tournaments to win just enough money to buy bread and maybe fix their armor. It's the gig economy of Westeros.
And the episode starts with a death, which again feels different. Usually in Game of Thrones, death is this huge, violent event, a sword through the neck, a beheading.
Right. But here, the old knight, Dunk's master, he just dies. Natural causes. It's raining, he's old, and he just passes away.
It's so mundane.
It is, but that mundanity sets the stage for Dunk's character. Instead of packing up and going home to, I don't know, be a farmer, he makes a choice. He buries his master, takes the sword, takes the armor, and decides, you know what? I can do this.
He's basically faking it until he makes it.
In a way, yes, but it's actually illegal. He's impersonating a knight. He heads to a competition that is strictly for knights. He shouldn't be there. He's an imposter.
I love that. It's so much more relatable than I was born to rule the Seven Kingdoms. It's just a guy trying to get a promotion. He's not qualified for it.
And that is exactly why people are calling this a grounded story. I mean, if we look at the narrative structure, there are no superhumans here. There's no Night King marching an army of the dead. There's no Red Priestess birthing shadow assassins.
So no magic.
Not really. Not yet, anyway. It focuses entirely on personal journeys. It's about survival, reputation, and finding your place in the world. It's not about political maneuvering in the Red Keep or magical warfare.
That feels like a massive risk for the franchise.
Yeah.
I mean, people tune in for the spectacle, right? They want the battles.
They do, but they stay for the characters. And that's where this show might actually surprise people. By stripping away the CGI monsters, you're forced to care about the humans.
Speaking of humans, let's talk about the duo at the center of this. We have our knight, Dunk, who isn't really a knight, and then we have the boy.
Ah, the squire, Egg.
This kid is relentless. He just shows up at Dunk's campfire and begs to be his squire. Let me serve you. Let me serve you. It's so intense. Usually kids in Westeros are running away from knights, not toward them.
It is suspicious, isn't it? He's presented as this orphan, this scrappy kid with nowhere to go, but here is where it gets fascinating.
I sense a but coming. You got that look on your face.
Well, if you pay attention to the lore, and even some subtle cues in the episode, there is a very strong implication that this boy is not who he says he is.
You mean he's not just a random orphan?
The first episode doesn't explicitly confirm it, so we are in theory territory here, but it's well-supported theory. Look at him. He's bald. He keeps his head shaved.
A fashion choice. Or lice.
Or a disguise. In this world, the Targaryens, the royals, are famous for their silver gold hair. If you were a royal trying to hide among the common people, what's the first thing you'd do?
Shave your head.
Exactly. Plus, the way he speaks. His knowledge of the world, of heraldry, of how the nobility behaves. It suggests he might actually be a member of a high-ranking royal family in disguise.
Wait, really? A royal acting like a servant? That's a classic trope, but it works so well here. Why would he do that?
To see the world as it really is, maybe. To escape the gilded cage, it adds this incredible layer of tension. You have a fake knight and a fake servant traveling together.
That's brilliant. So let's break that dynamic down. The knight is a peasant pretending to be noble to move up in the world.
Correct.
And the squire is a royal pretending to be a peasant to move down in the world.
It's a perfect inversion. They are intersecting in the middle. And that dynamic is what drives the whole show. Their chemistry is fantastic.
It really is. I noticed that neither of them overshadows the other. You know, with a kid actor, it can be hit or miss, or the adult has to carry the scene. But here, it feels like a genuine partnership.
It's balanced. And because the stakes are so personal, can we get food? Can we enter this tournament? That relationship becomes the most important thing on screen.
Now, let's talk about how this show looks. Because even though they didn't spend the budget on dragons, it does not look cheap.
Not at all. The cinematography is gorgeous, but it evokes a very specific feeling. A lot of people are calling it an old Western vibe.
Yes, I totally got that. The dusty roads, the lone hero walking into town, the inn that feels like a saloon.
And it goes even deeper than that. There is this sort of comparison to be made to the nostalgia of the 1980s or just pre-technology eras in general.
How so?
Think about the scenes where they are just existing. Sitting in the jungle, camping, just staring at a fire. There's no rush. It captures that peaceful analog atmosphere. It feels like a time before smartphones and constant distractions.
It's basically cottagecore Game of Thrones.
You could say that. It plays heavily on nostalgia. If you grew up in an era where you just sat outside with friends doing nothing, those scenes are going to hit a specific emotional chord. It forces you to slow down.
It sounds lovely, but,
Yeah.
and here is the user warning part. Does slowing down just mean it's boring?
That is the danger. And we have to be honest here. This is a slow burn.
I knew it.
I have to be clear for you. If you need an explosion every 5 minutes or a sword fight in every scene, you might struggle with this. Things move slowly.
It's a road trip movie, essentially.
It is, and that pacing is intentional. It's letting the world breathe. But for a modern audience conditioned by TikTok and fast cuts or even the breathless pace of the later Game of Thrones seasons, it might feel sluggish.
What about the comedy? I heard they tried to inject some humor into it.
They did. And honestly, it's a bit of a mixed bag.
Oh, no. Bad jokes in Westeros. That sounds painful.
At the beginning of the episode, the attempt at comedy feels, I don't know, annoying. It doesn't quite land. It feels a bit forced, maybe trying too hard to be lighthearted.
That's the worst. when you can feel the scriptwriter winking at you.
Exactly. It feels a bit like a sitcom trying to find its footing. However, I will say this. As the episode progresses, the humor starts to blend better with the narrative. Once the chemistry between the two leads settles in, the banter feels more natural.
Okay, that's good to know. So the advice is to just push through the first 10 minutes of cringe, and it gets better.
Precisely. Once they hit the road, the rhythm clicks.
So we've got a slow burn, no dragons, and a wannabe knight. I feel like we need to manage expectations here, because the brand name, Game of Thrones, carries a lot of baggage.
It carries the weight of the world, and that is the biggest hurdle this show faces, the Game of Thrones filter.
Right. If I turn this on expecting the Battle of the Bastards, I'm going to be mad.
You will be incredibly disappointed. The stakes here are remarkably low compared to the main series. In Game of Thrones, if they fail, the world ends. The Night King wins. Here, if they fail, they might get beat up or go hungry.
But isn't that kind of refreshing?
I think so. But you have to actively shift your mindset. You have to go in expecting a character study, not a war epic. You are watching a story about people, not a story about empires.
But let's look at the future potential. Even though it started slow, does it feel like quality TV?
Oh, absolutely. It gives off the vibe of a premium show. The production value is there. And just because there are no dragons now doesn't mean the fantasy element is gone forever.
That's true. It's still the same world.
Correct. We are still connected to the larger lore. Future episodes might introduce magical elements, or dragons might appear in the distance, or, more likely, we will start to see the seeds of the political conflicts that tear the world apart 100 years later.
So what's the verdict? Is it a pass or a play?
For me, it's a definite play.
Even with a slow start?
Even with the slow start. The first episode is fundamentally very strong, the writing is solid, the acting is great.
What are the numbers saying? I know you love your data.
The public reception has been surprisingly warm, given the change in tone. It's currently sitting at an 8.8 on IMDb.
Wow, 8.8. That's higher than I expected for a slow burn pilot.
It indicates that people are resonating with the heart of the story. Maybe they're tired of all the cynicism and the darkness. Personally, I'd give it a solid 8 out of 10. It's a confident start.
And for anyone wondering where to find it, it's
Oh.
on GeoHotstar, as we mentioned eventually, and it is available in Hindi and multiple other languages, right?
Yes, wide availability. They are clearly pushing this as a major release.
So what does this all mean? It sounds like a Knight of the Seven Kingdoms is zagging while everyone else is zigging.
It is trading spectacle for soul.
I like that. Trading spectacle for soul. It's a beautiful, grounded, Western-style character study. It might not blow your speakers out with dragon roars, but it might just win you over with a quiet conversation by a campfire.
And frankly, after years of destruction and fire in King's Landing, maybe a quiet campfire is exactly what we need.
Amen to that. It's a palate cleanser for the franchise.
But before we go, I want to leave you with a thought, a little provocation for your brain.
Here we go. The expert's parting shot. Lay it on me.
We talked about the boy egg, the squire who is likely royalty in disguise.
Right, the secret Targaryen.
If this show is set only 100 years before the total collapse of the Targaryen dynasty, consider this. How does this small personal journey of this one boy shape the massive political landscape we see a century later?
Oh.
Think about it. He is traveling in the roads, sleeping in the dirt, eating bad food, seeing how the common people actually suffer. He isn't sitting in the Red Keep being told everything is fine.
He's getting a real education.
Exactly. But does that make him a better ruler? Or does it plant the seeds for something else? Is this grounded road trip actually the origin story of a dynasty's fall? Are we watching the childhood events that inadvertently set the stage for the chaos that leads to the Mad King?
Man, that is wild to think about. We usually think history is made by big battles, but you're saying it might be made right here, in the mud.
Sometimes the biggest avalanches start with the smallest pebbles.
A road trip that changes history. Well, on that note, I think I'm going to go rewatch the episode and pay very close attention to that kid. Thank you all for diving deep with us today. Even if you hate slow shows, give this one a shot. It might just surprise you. See you in the next deep dive.
Goodbye, everyone.